Hello everyone, this is Jason for Primetime Aquatics, and I am super excited to bring you today a comparison between two very popular filters. I brought out the big boys today. We're going to do an unboxing. I'm going to compare the two, talk about their features, get them up and running on some tanks. The Aquaclear 110 versus the Seachem Tidal 110. These are big filters that push a lot of water. Let's see which one comes out on top. All right, let's go ahead. We're going to move the Seachem Tidal out of the way for a minute, and we're going to go ahead and take a look at this one first. And what we're going to do is we're going to unbox them both, and then I want to do a side-by-side comparison so that you can see what you're getting to give you a better, more informed decision. By the way, if you're new to the channel and you like this sort of thing, consider subscribing, because we've done a lot of filtration videos before. We talk about water parameters and species profiles, get into water chemistry, nerd out a little bit. So if you're new to the channel, check it out, subscribe. Hope you enjoy the video. All right, so here is the Aquaclear 110. We're gonna go ahead and open up this box and see what we get. Now, this filter has been around for a very long time. We have some directions that we can kind of put aside for a moment. Now, the nice thing about the Aquaclears is they do have a relatively sturdy plastic. They're a nice looking filter. More of a clear plastic, if we can get this thing out of the box. The nice thing also about these filters is I noticed they do come with a lot of aftermarket spare parts in case something ever happens to your filter. And so here we have it. And let me go ahead and bring out the other media. And what else is in this box? A little piece of plastic. We'll get to that in a minute. So we're going to go ahead, set that box aside for a second. And so this is what you're getting. When you get an Aquaclear 110, you're getting the filter basket, obviously. And the nice thing is, when it comes to the Aquaclear 110, these filter baskets are removable. So you can see here, you're getting this nice big giant piece of foam, and that's going to trap a lot of the nasty things that are in your aquarium. So this filter is going to probably do a pretty good job of mechanical filtration, trapping stuff in this foam. And then the other thing that you're going to get is you get this biomedia. Now, we would probably, when we open this up, or if you use this, you're going to want to rinse out this biomedia. Otherwise, sometimes you get kind of like the powder that releases into the tank. It's not the end of the world. It's not going to really hurt your tank. It just might not look so great. So if you're going to use the biomedia, and I'll show you how to set this up in a second, you're definitely going to want to rinse this stuff out before you put it in your filter and have it up and running. The other thing that you're going to get is you're going to get some activated carbon. Now, for us, I generally don't use activated carbon in our filtration systems, and it's just a personal preference thing. But if you wanted to use this, there's certainly nothing wrong with it. Activated carbon can help keep down some of the smells a little bit, maybe contribute to a little bit of water clarity, but I just don't find it does a whole lot for us, and so I generally don't use it. Now, the way that this normally works is you have the foam on the bottom, and that's going to be primarily mechanical filtration. Like I said, it's going to trap a lot of the detritus and stuff like that. And then you've got the biomedia stuff that you can put on next, and that's really surface area to house your beneficial bacteria. Now, the sponge will provide that as well, but this is where all your beneficial bacteria are going to go that will convert your ammonia to nitrite, and eventually your nitrite to nitrate, and that's going to keep your water looking good. By the way, if you are new to aquarium keeping and you want more information on the nitrogen cycle, which I think is the most important thing you can learn if you're new to fish keeping, I'm going to put that in the upper right-hand corner as well as in the description below. And then, of course, you've got the activated carbon, and that can go right on top just like this. I suppose if you were to switch the two, that's not the end of the world either, but the big thing is you want the foam on the bottom to trap the detritus and the stuff that's in the water before it gets to your carbon and before it gets to your the biological filtration. So that's kind of how this works. Now, stuff's almost fallen over on me. What we have here is the actual filter itself. We can see here the motor is over here. And now one of the things that you're going to see is the motor is actually external to the actual tank. And so it'll actually rest on the outside of the tank. This piece here is just going to fit in just like that. And one of the nice things about the Aquaclears is this is adjustable. So they have an adjustable flow. It's a relatively simple mechanism where you just turn it from side to side. That adjusts the amount of water that's going to be taken into the filter. And so that's definitely a plus. Anytime you have an aquarium filter that has an adjustable flow, that's a good thing. And then all you have to do to set up the rest of the filter is basically put these two pieces together like this. they would go on here like so. Come on now, there we go. And so basically you have this just like that, and then you can put your filter basket right back in, and I'll show you how to do this more in detail in a second. Fill the back up with water, plug it in, and you should be ready to go. So the Aquaclear is a relatively simple, straightforward hang on the back filter. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at the Seachem 110, and we'll talk about some differences. Like I said, we're going to compare them side to side so that you can see really what you're getting, because either way, these filters both run about the same price, and so they're going to be both right around $80 as of the making of this video on Amazon.com. By the way, if you are interested in purchasing either one of these filters, check out the affiliate links down in the description below. That will get you pointed in the right direction. Okay, now we've got the Seachem Tidal 110, and as the name implies, they are very similar in terms of the amount of water they're going to push through. So in terms of gallons per hour, the Aquaclear, the one that we just unboxed, the Aquaclear 110, does about 500 gallons per hour. This Seachem Tidal 110 is going to be a little bit less, right around 450 gallons per hour, but they're both rated up to about a 110-gallon tank. All right, so the Seachem Tidal, a little different in the way it looks, and we're going to see that here in a moment, if I can get it out of the box. It's not easy to do on camera sometimes, because things don't always work as planned. But here we've got the lid, and so you can see instead of being clear like the Aquaclears, the Seachem Tidals are black in color. And we're going to have some stuff falling out. And so here is the Seachem Tidal 110. And so some things that we've got going on, just like what we see here with the Aquaclear, this thing also has a removable basket. I like this basket better. And to be clear, I have done reviews on the Seachem Tidal 35 and the Seachem Tidal 55. I like those filters quite a bit. Have them up and running in my fish room as we speak. So for this one, to get the basket out, there's a little blue, kind of like a little safety knob here that has to be slid back. And then this thing just lifts right out, and that's the basket. So you can see here, you got the filter compartment. I prefer this basket over the Aquaclear 110, and the reason for that is with the Aquaclear 110, now if you can imagine for a second, and we'll do this more in a long-term review. Let me get the filters out of here for a minute, sorry about that. And so here we've got the Aquaclear, here we've got the Seachem. Now imagine that you've got your filter media all stacked up here like we just showed you with the bio rings and the carbon, and you're trying to pull this out like this. The stuff that's on top can fall out, and it's dripping everywhere and it's dirty, where the nice thing about the Seachem basket is it's all contained, and so you just pull this thing out and there's no media to fall all over the floor or tip over. So that's a slight advantage. I mean, it's not a big deal, but you can see here that this is just a little bit easier to work with, just like the Aquaclear, where you've got this sponge, this big sponge. The Seachem also comes with a sponge. It's not nearly as big, and so you can see here there is a big difference. Let me get this out of the way here. And so here's your Seachem sponge that comes with the Seachem Tidal. Here's your Aquaclear. So obviously you're getting a lot more surface area here to trap detritus and to potentially grow beneficial bacteria with the Aquaclear sponge. The nice thing is you are not confined to the media that either one of these filters provides for you. In fact, we've done videos before on how to save a lot of money on aquarium filter media. I'm going to put that video in the upper right hand corner, as well as some affiliate links down in the description below, because one of the places where you can save a lot of money is if you buy filter floss online, and so that can definitely be helpful. So here, this sponge is going to go on the bottom just like that. It also, the Seachem also comes with the bio media, and so you can go ahead, just like with the Aquaclear stuff, and I'll go ahead and open this bag. Whew, you can see, well, I don't know if you can see, but a bunch of stuff just came out of here, like a bunch of dust and stuff. That's totally normal. I would very much prefer to rinse this out before I put it in here, just because, again, I don't want that white powder going all over my tank. Is it dangerous for your fish? Probably not. I've never seen it do anything horrible, but you just don't want your tank looking all cloudy after you put this brand new filter in. Okay, so that's pretty much the unpacking and the unboxing. Now, the Seachem, as we can see here, it's got a couple things going on. And before we even do that, let me go ahead let me go ahead and get the rest of the parts out. And so this thing also has an intake. The intake is a little bit different for a very important reason. And so we've got the intake here, and these things just kind of slide together. And again, I'm just doing this for the first time, so we're gonna have to figure this out together. Oh, there we go. And so you'll know that it's the right size because listen, you hear that clicking? And so this is an adjustable intake. And so this thing would just kind of go right on the bottom of this, and it would sit just like that. Okay, so the assembly of both of these is really simple. I mean, it should only take a minute or two. All right, so that's kind of how they go together. And I'll put these together before we put them in the tank and give you a little bit more thorough explanation of what's going on. There's a couple other things that come with the Seachem Tidal lines. In here, there is also a heater holder. This is okay. I generally don't use them with the Seachem Tidal lines just because I like to put my heaters in other places. But the nice thing here is this will go next to or kind of by where the return is going to be. So you got your heater and then the water is coming right out. That makes it easy to get the heated water all over your tank. The other thing that we have going on is on the bottom here, you're going to see that there is a screw. And this thing is just going to screw right into here. I've got to put the piece in here. There's another little piece right here. And this is going to go together. Again, I'll show you how to do that, but that's going to make sure that your filter is level. And so we'll talk more about that in a few minutes. Okay, so now that we have that, let's talk a little bit about where your money is going to go. All right, so let's go ahead and compare these two. As you can see, just by looking at them, the Aquaclear is a little bit wider, a little bit shorter. It's also a little bit longer. The Seachem Tidal, and this is actually kind of something to consider. When you're looking at these two filters, the Seachem Tidal only requires about 3 inches from the wall to the back of the tank. And so when we go ahead and we look at this thing sideways here, it's pretty thin. Now, when you look at the Aquaclear, it's similar, but the Aquaclear is definitely, it's definitely thicker. And so that is definitely something to consider when you are looking for a filter, especially if your fish tank is already in place and you've got a larger tank. The Aquaclear is going to need a little bit more space. How much more so? I don't have a ruler in front of me. I know this is 3 inches because the Seachem website said it was. This is probably somewhere around 4 inches or so. So I would leave at least 4 inches of space from the back of the tank to the wall for the Aquaclear. The Seachem, you're probably good with about 3 inches. Now, there are some really big differences between these two filters that you should absolutely consider before you make that $80 purchase. Because they're roughly priced the same, the price point isn't, at least it's not a consideration initially. The biggest difference between these two filters is where the impeller and the motor is located. As I've mentioned, in the Aquaclear, when this thing sets on the back of a tank, the motor is outside of the tank. And so it's going to suck water through the intake. And what's cool is the water flow is going to come through the bottom, and then it's going to go through all the media from bottom to top, and then it's going to come out of the return. But the motor is outside the tank. With the Seachem line, the design is much different. The impeller and the motor, this part right here, this is the part that holds the impeller and motor. This, when it goes onto the tank, this is actually in the water. Why does that matter? It matters for a few reasons. Reason number one, if you are looking for an absolutely silent filter, at least in terms of motor noise, the Seachem is one of the quietest filters out there because the impeller and the motor are in the water. You don't hear it. The Aquaclears, on the other hand, can be a little bit noisier because the impeller and the motor are outside the tank. You hear that motor a little bit more, especially as the filters start to age. The second thing that this internal motor allows is this particular filter, the Seachem Tidal line, all of them are self-priming. That is huge for 2 reasons. One, when you get the filter started, I'm going to show you this when we set these things up on the tank, you don't have to have water in the back of the filter to get the filter to run. That's great when you first start up the filter, but it's also really important if you ever have a power outage. often happens is some of the filter water will drain out of the intake, and then it will leave the back of the filter compartment filled with less water. When the power comes back on, this bad boy, the Seachem Tidal lines, at least in our experience in our fish room, they just start right back up again because the impeller was in the water, really good suction. With the Aquaclears, what can happen sometimes, and not all the time, but what can happen, and what we've experienced with some of the smaller Aquaclears, is that once the power comes back on, these things remain off because the external motor doesn't have the suction to pull the water back through. Now, as I mentioned, both of them have another feature that I find to be extremely important, and that is the adjustable flow. We showed how that works. The Aquaclear, you've got this dial here. Well, luckily for us with the Seachem line, we have a couple things going on. We have adjustable water flows. Actually, we have two dials here, an adjustable water flow here, and then another one up here. The other thing that the Seachem line has is this surface skimmer. And so it has the ability to not only take the water from the intake below, but from the surface as well. Now, I would say from my perspective, using this on other tanks, I haven't found it really to matter. For us, it's been more of, I wouldn't say a gimmick, but it's not something that I particularly care about. And it does create some issues. And I think the biggest issue and something you really have to consider is if you are putting either one of these filters on a breeding tank, or you are putting these filters on a tank that is going to have, let's say, shrimp. The Aquaclear might be a better filter for that tank, and here's the reason why. This surface skimmer, it's really difficult to try to block the water flow in here, and so sometimes small fry and shrimp can get caught up in here. The other thing is going to be the actual intake itself. So these are the intake tubes for both filters. I highly recommend, if you're going to be breeding or you're going to be keeping shrimp, to use a pre-filter intake sponge on the intake. I've done a video about that, which I will put in the upper right-hand corner as well as in the description below. I have an example of one. This is actually a Marineland branded one, so I don't know if it'll fit or not. No, it's a little bit loose, but basically the intake filter would go on just like this. And that would prevent any fry or shrimp or snails from getting sucked up into the intake. Now you can do the same thing with this one, with the Seachem. And again, this isn't really the right size. This is really built for a Marineland intake. But again, it's blocking small fish from getting sucked up into the intakes. I will say that the holes in the intake for the Aquaclears are a little bit larger, and so the likelihood that a small fish gets sucked up is certainly higher. I've seen mystery snails get caught up, especially in these intakes, because the intakes, like I said, are a little bit, the holes are a little bit wider than, let's say the Seachem line. Now, one other thing that the Seachem line has that the Aquaclear doesn't have is it's got this little blue button here, and this tells you when the filter media needs to be changed. It kind of pops up a little bit because what you'll see is that the Seachem line has an overflow that activates this. I find it, because we maintain our filters pretty much every single week, it's not something I really rely upon. Both filters, as I mentioned with the Aquaclear, what's nice about both of these filters is they do bring the water into the filter. And then what's going to happen is the water is going to flow from the bottom of the filter up through the top of the filter and then out. And so that will theoretically expose more of the fish tank water to the actual filter media. Now, to be clear, I haven't necessarily found that to be a thing that absolutely has to happen. We've got other filters in the fish room where the filter media is actually placed from front to back, and the water goes in that direction. I haven't really noticed any differences when it comes to mechanical or biological filtration. Now, one of the things a lot of people want to know is, okay, well, what about the filter compartments? Because I want to be able to put as much media in the filter compartment as possible, and so larger is always better when it comes to the compartment. I have not found that to be true, especially when it comes to biological filtration. And so when it comes to the filter compartments, as you can see here, I would say they're probably about the same, right? Because this one's a little bit taller, this one is a little bit wider. But when it comes to the compartment size, and if I wanted to look at cubic inches or something like that, it really doesn't matter. Both of these filters are going to give you more than enough potential surface area for biological filtration. In other words, making sure that your ammonia is converted to nitrite and your nitrite is converted to nitrate. Both of these filters are going to give you enough space to do proper mechanical filtration. In other words, we want to filter out all the gunk in our tanks so that it appears clear. Now, when we are usually setting up the filters, and I mentioned this in the intro, especially with the Aquaclears, and I'm going to use the Aquaclear basket here just because it's easier to see. What you would normally do when you're setting these things up, and it's the same thing for the Seachem, is you're going to put the sponge on the bottom. This is your mechanical filtration that's going to trap a lot of your detritus. The next thing, if you're going to use the carbon, rinse it first, and then the carbon, your chemical filtration that's going to neutralize some of the stuff in your tank, that's going to go next. Again, I don't use this, and I'm going to show you what I do in a second. Now, there is one advantage to the Seachem, at least in terms of initial setup, and that is the biomedia that I already showed you. It already came in a bag, so you just have to put it directly into your filter. Aquaclear gets lazy. They give you the media, and then they give you a filter bag, and I'm not going to go through the hassle of doing that right now, but you have to put the media in the filter bag. I find that annoying, but if, let's just say I did that, then your biomedia goes on top, and this is just surface area to house beneficial bacteria. All of this would go right in the tank, or right in the filter. Now, what I do, I tend not to use this stuff, but it's good stuff. I mean, it is going to give you surface area for biological filtration. I definitely don't use the carbon. Again, feel free to use it. There's nothing wrong with it. I just don't bother. What I do is I usually have the sponge material, so it doesn't matter if it's this one or the Seachem. And then I buy filter floss in bulk, like I already mentioned. That link is in the description below. And so I will put a few pieces of filter floss on top of the sponge. And so we want our sponge first, and then our filter floss. That's going to trap all the debris. And I usually get more than enough. Again, I've never, ever in 80 tanks in our fish room had an issue with biological filtration doing it this way. So I don't really want to press too hard on this because I'm on the lid of our 50-gallon lowboy here. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it like that. But anyway, you get the idea. Here, again, lots of space. So we can go ahead. Now, here's the thing. Sometimes with the Seachems, what people will say is, oh my gosh, this thing bypasses the media too much. One of the ways I found to get around that with the Seachem line is if you use filter floss, put it in this way, not like a pancake style. So you want to kind of put it in vertically, and that solves, I think, almost all the problems with people who complain about this filter not getting enough of the water through the media and too much of it going through the bypass. We've done that with both our Seachem 35s and our 55s, and we don't have that issue of bypassing. So that's generally what I do. And the nice thing is this thing just slides back in. As you can see, it's a little bit easier than the Aquaclear. You flip this thing back, you're good there. All right, so let's go ahead real quick, get these two things up and running. We'll get them on tanks. I'll show you what it looks like. All we have to do to the Seachem is get this little blue part. It fits right down in here, and that's going to allow us to use this screw to balance the filter when we hang it on. So the last thing we want is this thing to be kind of leaning either direction. So we want it to be perfectly level. We can use this adjustment screw. My advice is go ahead and screw this thing all the way in at first, and then you can go ahead and adjust it from there, because if you don't do that and you try to slip it on the tank, this thing's going to be in the way. It might already get in the way, so we're going to have to see if we have any issues sliding this on the back of the tank. I don't think we will, but you never know. The other thing we have to do is just go ahead and put the intake on that we see right here. So this just goes and slides right on like that. We can adjust this, so if we've got a longer tank, you can see here, that's going to be okay. Okay, and now we just need to put the lid on. Now remember, this one, we don't have to put water in the back of this before we start this up. So this thing can just go right on. We're going to set this on the tank, plug it in, and it is ready to roll. Again, we've got the adjustment dials here that are going to allow us to control the flow. So this is going to control the flow, how much is coming out. This one here helps control how much we're getting through the bottom intake compared to the surface skimmer. So we're just going to go ahead and set that down for a minute. The Aquaclear, again, really easy. I'm going to go ahead and take this out because I'm not going to be using this. But if you were, that's how you would do it. I have the intake right here. And again, this just needs to connect right onto here, just like that. Let me go ahead and hold this down a little bit so that we can do that. And so now that's in there. We've got our intake is snug. So that's just like that. The other thing that we want to do is this thing, the Aquaclear, is going to, just like the Seachem Tidal line, is going to have a space where you can put this piece, which is going to allow you to adjust the filter and level it. So it just kind of slides just in here like that. And again, you can just turn this thing. It's very simple, just like this. And that's going to allow you to make sure that this thing is level. Okay, here we have the lid, but this we're not going to put the lid on right away because this one we are going to have to fill with water before we go ahead and plug it in. And this would also be if you had an intake sponge, you'd want to put that on your intake as well. All right, so real quick, you can see how they're running, what they look like. Both of them are great. I would say the one thing, and I actually forgot about this when it comes to the Seachem line, I just wish, and it's a very minor thing, I wish they would get rid of the blue dial. I don't think filtration should ever be something that stands out in your fish tank. If that was a black dial, it would just be better. I like the way the Aquaclear kind of just blends in a little bit nicer. But other than that, they're both running well. They're both quiet so far. All right, everyone, so we did the unboxing. What I always do is I want these filters up and running for at least a year. So it's going to be a while before you get a long-term update. But I wanted to show you side by side what these filters are like because they're similarly priced. Now, if I were to guess which one I'm going to enjoy more moving forward, it's probably going to be the Seachem Tidal, only because I've had really good luck with that filter. They're extremely quiet, very easy to work with, but I'm excited for the Aquaclear 110. I hope that will do a great job as well. Again, if you want more information on filtration, check out these videos in the upper and lower right-hand corner. Appreciate you being here, and we'll see you in the next one.